Rachel Colarutis, Tiffany Rowell, and Christine Paolilla were inseparable at Clearlake High School in Texas. 3 teenage girls navigating secrets and sisterhood. But on July 18, 2003, best friends Rachel and Tiffany were spending a summer afternoon at Tiffany's home with 2 boys. They were all recent graduates. They had bright futures and big dreams, and in a flash, it was gone. What police found inside that home was a bloodbath. 4 bodies executed. No forced entry, no immediate suspects, but one name kept surfacing: Christine Paolilla. This is the true story of betrayal, revenge, and a massacre that stunned a community. This is Christine Paolilla, the Clearlake Murders. Hey y'all, I'm Kris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Podorf. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our Douala-speaking friends in Cameroon.
Cameroon?
Yes. Palawamba.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, wherever you are listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so others who are like you and love true crime can find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below.
Yep.
If you want true crime with us all the time, please join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Just go to Facebook, type in H2H. Don't forget that part, In-Laws and Outlaws. Answer a couple questions. You're part of the crew. Go join.
And they're a lot of fun.
They are a ton of fun. 2 tons of fun.
There you go. Say that 10 times fast.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And we also have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee.
Please.
He drinks it every single episode.
Absolutely.
And you can find that link in our show notes. You can also send us a text.
Mm-hmm.
And the link to that is at the top of the show notes where it says, send Kris and Rob a text.
Please do.
Well, Robbie, we covered this case years ago, but I wanted to revisit it just because it's so crazy. I saw it come up again in another true crime feed, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to go back and talk about that one.
All right.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources. ABC 13 in Houston, the Toronto Sun, the Houston Chronicle, Cron.com, People Magazine, Wikipedia, Yahoo News, the Clay County Government, Justia Law, Oxygen Channels Snapped, the Plainview Herald, Legacy.com, and ABC News' 2020.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Christine Marie Paolilla was born on Long Island, New York, on March 31st, 1986. I have genes older than she is. Her mother, Lori, was a homemaker. Her father, Charles, worked construction, but he also battled a heroin addiction.
Ooh.
I just want to say, all Gen Xers, we reference everything by how it affected us. 1986, I got genes that in my closet.
Yeah, well, us baby boomers, we're just happy to be here.
Don't say that. Christine wasn't an only child. She had an older brother named John, but when Christine was just 2 years old, tragedy strikes. Her father was killed in a construction accident in New York City. He was crushed by falling bricks on the job.
Oh.
The grief didn't end there because within a short time, her paternal grandfather and great-grandmother also passed away, and she was very close to both of them. And to deal with all of it, Christine's mother started using heroin just like her dad.
Good grief.
Lori's now a single mother. She's got 2 young children. She's got a broken heart, and she turned to drugs to cope with the unbearable weight of loss. But Christine's life, already marked by tragedy, is just beginning to spiral. And she's only a toddler.
Wow.
By the time Christine started kindergarten, more heartache was on the horizon. Her mother noticed something alarming. Clumps of Christine's hair were left behind on her pillow each morning, and doctors soon delivered a diagnosis of alopecia. She was losing all her hair.
Right.
And it wasn't just the hair on her head. Christine quickly lost her eyebrows, her eyelashes, every strand of hair that gave her a sense of normalcy. And as if that weren't isolating enough, she also suffered from severely impaired vision and wore thick, oversized glasses, which just means she stood out, and not in the way any child wants to.
Right.
By the age of 7, Christine's world had completely unraveled. Her mother lost custody of her and her brother, and they were sent to live with her mom's parents. They went with their maternal grandparents.
Got it.
At school, life was no kinder. Christine was relentlessly bullied. Kids are so mean.
Yeah.
And they yanked off her wig in the hallways. They laughed at her thick glasses. They mocked her drawn-on eyebrows that smeared when she would get hot and sweat. And the cheap Halloween wigs that she wore only made things worse, offering zero protection and gave her no dignity. So she wasn't wearing like a natural wig, like a very expensive wig. She was wearing like a wig made out of plastic, basically.
Right.
She didn't have a father, and she'd lost her mom to addiction. Her home really wasn't hers because she's living with her grandparents. And now her classmates, who treated her like a sideshow, the cruelty just came from every single direction. She didn't really have like one good thing to hang on to.
It was like every day for her.
Yeah. But finally, some good news. Christine's mom, Lori, got clean. She fought her way out of addiction and regained custody of her children, and the fractured family began to rebuild.
That's good.
But even more, Lori fell in love again, and she remarried, bringing some long overdue stability into Christine and her brother's life. And for the first time in years, things were starting to look up. So she went from not having a mom, not having a dad, living with her grandparents, to being back with her mom and now having a stepdad who was like this stable force in her life.
Good.
Eventually, the whole family packed up and moved to Clearlake City, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. I love Houston, Texas. I love Texas, but I love Houston, Texas.
Yep.
If you're listening from the Lone Star State, God bless you. It's hotter than Satan's butt crack in July, but the people are really some of the nicest you'll ever meet.
The stars at night.
The stars at night are big and bright.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Okay, Pee-wee. But even though all the people of Texas are nice, maybe the teenagers aren't quite as nice. Because when Christine enrolled at Clearlake High School, the bullying didn't stop. She was still the outcast, still the girl with the wigs and the drawn-on eyebrows. That is, until she was noticed by not just anybody, but 2 of the most popular girls in school.
Oh, okay.
Rachel Colarutis and her best friend, Tiffany and Rachel. And they saw Christine and how people were bullying her, and they knew that she was just living a nightmare.
Right.
And instead of turning away, they gave her friendship.
That's nice.
And they tucked her under their wings. They pretty much gave her a place at their table.
It's kind of like the movie Clueless.
Kind of like the movie Clueless, a little bit like Mean Girls. You can't sit with us. You can't sit with us.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we wear pink.
Yeah.
But for the first time, Christine felt like she was not alone. She has friends. Now, just a little background on Clearlake High School. It's not your average public school. This is the school where kids of NASA engineers and oil executives went to school.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking polished, privileged,
Yeah.
picture-perfect teenage years.
Sure.
And Tiffany and Rachel, they weren't just popular. They were kind of like the it girls. And everybody knew them and everybody wanted to be around them. So when they took Christine under their wing, it wasn't just kindness. It was like a social miracle. It was like a social lifeline. And that is like Clueless.
Yeah.
Let's do a makeover.
For sure.
She had arrived.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And in case you didn't know, it's based on Jane Austen's Emma, but it's set in Beverly Hills.
Huh.
So you get the idea. Cher and Dion take on the awkward new girl, Ty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give her a full-blown makeover, and that is exactly what Rachel and Tiffany did for Christine.
I'm gonna be a supermodel.
They taught her how to wear makeup, helped her find a natural-looking wig, and more than anything, they gave her something she never had before, confidence. They brought her into their world, the world of popular girls. Now, keep in mind, Rachel and Tiffany are a year ahead of Christine at Clearlake High. But the age gap didn't seem to matter. They were inseparable. So close, in fact, that Christine only felt comfortable removing her wig in front of the two of them.
Makes sense.
And the transformation didn't go unnoticed. In 2003, the once bullied outcast was voted Miss Irresistible by the student body.
Really?
So she's gone from being basically a pariah, where everybody's like making fun of her, taking her wig, to being Miss Irresistible.
She went from zero to hero.
Zero to hero, no time back.
She did. And for Christine Paolilla, life had never been better, but perfect moments don't last forever. That same year, 2003, Christine started dating a man named Christopher Lee Snider. Chris was 21.
Ooh.
Christine is just 17.
Okay.
So it's Christine and Chris. I actually dated a guy named Chris for a little while.
Yeah.
And every time somebody would go, Chris, we would both turn around and go, what? Yeah. And when I saw that, I was like, that had to be a little bit confusing.
Yeah. Good thing your name isn't Rob.
Or Robbie. But Chris came with some baggage. He had a criminal record tied to Louisville, Kentucky.
Really?
Yeah, he was one of my people.
Okay.
He was from Louisville,
All right.
where his mom lived. Now, I couldn't pin down exactly how much time he spent growing up there, but he had definite ties in the area, and he had a rap sheet in Kentucky to prove it.
Wow.
He also had family in Texas, which explains how he ended up crossing paths with Christine. And trust me, we'll get into all of that. So hang on.
Okay.
But from the jump, this relationship was different. It was very intense. It was very controlling. And it was really dangerous. Now, I've seen a couple of descriptions of Chris, and honestly, they both say a lot. Some described him as pushy, aggressive, a guy with a serious drug habit, and a temper to match.
He's needy, pushy, and controlling.
I was just about to say pushy, aggressive.
Wow.
Okay, I'm Chris too.
What?
Just no serious drug habit. No, I'm not pushy or aggressive.
What more could one ask for?
Yeah, for real.
Jeez.
But others painted a slightly different picture. A 21-year-old who had the mental maturity of a 15-year-old. That was what they thought of Chris.
Wow.
He talked a big game, like he had these big dreams of playing in the NBA, but he wasn't playing basketball anywhere. So you get the idea.
Wow.
It kind of made me think of Along Came Polly.
Let it rain!
Let it rain.
Yeah.
Let it rain.
Yeah, exactly.
He's kind of a mix of fantasy and frustration and addiction, and somehow Christine was drawn to that. But red flags don't always wave loud enough, especially when you're 17.
Yeah.
And a guy is paying attention to you, especially a 21-year-old. Now, Christine's mother will later tell 2020 that Chris scared her. Quote, there was something in his eyes, end quote. She said that he had something dark behind his eyes. It was very unsettling.
Well, they always say the eyes are the window to the soul.
True.
Yeah.
So I just say, if you get that ick or you get that weird feeling,
Yeah.
or you feel like something's whispering in your ear, your intuition,
Yeah.
if you're like a dog and your hackles are up, it's time to skedaddle. Get out of there.
Listen to your gut.
Listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
Rachel and Tiffany, they see it too. They don't like Chris either. They try to warn her, They told her she deserved better, that there was somebody out there that would treat her with kindness and dignity and respect. But Christine did not listen. She's a 17-year-old girl.
Right.
And that very choice is going to change the trajectory of her life forever.
Well, and also, don't you think the fact that he has a rap sheet, he's bad, a drug abuse, all that, there's a part of her that wants to rescue him because of what she went through as a child?
I don't know if she wants to rescue him as much as she likes the bad boy.
Okay.
You know, sometimes girls they like the bad boy.
Is that why I never dated in high school?
That is not true. First off, that is not true. But I mean, think about it. So many romance novels. I write romantic suspense novels and thriller novels, but so many, romance novels, the girl is with the bad guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, look at Fonzie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Let's talk about the relationship between Christine and Kris, because every report I found said that they fought like two cats in a burlap sack. Violent, they were vicious, they were toxic, and one source called it, quote, crushing jealousy, end quote.
Wow.
The kind that just didn't simmer, it exploded. So they fought all the time, and it was physical.
Wow.
And if Kris even looked at another girl, Christine would lose her damn mind, like full-on rage. She didn't just yell, she would hit him.
Wow.
And after one particularly nasty fight, Christine didn't storm off. She camped out on the front lawn of Chris's family's home. She was screaming. She was rattling screen doors. She was trying to break in just to get to him.
Well, I can kind of understand that because you do the same thing to me when I look at a piece of music software.
It's so not true. So not true. The only thing I do is if I'm trying to watch TV or the news or something, he's always got his laptop with him, and he's like listening to all this music, and I'm like, dude, headphones. Put the headphones in. I have that thing where I get overstimulated, and if the TV's going and he's got music going at the same time, I'm like, my head's about to blow off. So put your headphones in, please. But you know what? After 17 years, he pretty much puts his headphones in all the time. Now, sometimes they're not connected to the computer, and he'll get a side eye from me, but that's it.
And I'm like, give me a second. Just give me a second. I'll hook it up.
But she's outside, like, acting like a crazy person.
Man.
And Brandy, Chris's sister, later said that Christine went so far as to threaten the whole family. She's yelling, I'm going to kill Chris's parents and Brandy too.
And I'm gonna kill you.
Ruth?
I'm gonna kill you if you
No,
don't
you
tell
won't.
me.
No, you are not.
Chris, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your parents and your sister Brandy.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Sniders, Chris's family, they had a nickname for her. They called her
Psycho.
She's psycho. She is fatal attraction.
the Psycho. That's exactly what they called her. Oh my gosh.
I swear I have no idea what she's going to talk about.
They called her the Psycho.
Wow.
And here's where things get even a little more twisted.
Even more twisted?
Even more twisted.
Jeez.
There are conflicting accounts of what went on behind closed doors between Kris and Christine. One version paints a disturbing picture.
All right, so we've gone from twisted to disturbing?
Yes.
Good combo.
Christine allegedly demanded humiliation and degradation during sex. She wanted to be punished. That's one side.
Okay.
The other side is that Kris had this long rap sheet and a drug habit he passed on to Christine. And according to her family, the relationship wasn't just toxic, it was abusive. He abused her. She wasn't asking for it.
Gotcha.
They say Kris isolated her from her friends and got her hooked on drugs and raped her. There's one story that during one of their screaming matches, Christine suddenly went quiet. She stared Kris down, walked over, licked his face from chin to forehead. Then she spat on the ground and walked away.
Okay.
That is like straight up wackadoo, if you ask me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Chris told his family that he was only afraid of two things.
I am genuinely afraid of her.
The police and Christine. So who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? I mean, they're both bad, but yeah. Now, remember, Christine is a year behind Tiffany and Rachel in school. So while Christine was being crowned Miss Irresistible in 2003, her two best friends were graduating and stepping into their futures. Rachel Ann Colarudas was born on November 20th, 1984, to George and Ann at Clearlake High. She wasn't just popular, she was purposeful. Rachel had plans for college, even tossed around the idea of joining the United States Air Force. She held jobs throughout high school. She worked as a youth counselor at summer camps and vacation Bible school and was deeply involved in her church.
The All-American girl.
She was also an artist. She was into creative writing and painting. She's a beautiful girl, inside and out. Rachel's father once said he wasn't the least bit surprised when his daughter took Christine under her wing because that's just who she was. Rachel always looked out for the underdog. She liked to make people feel seen. And one of her friends really put it best, quote, "She was beautiful. She could have been a model," end quote.
Wow.
But Rachel wanted more than beauty. She wanted to make a difference.
Just a good girl.
Yes. And then there's Tiffany Nicole Rowell. Tiffany was born on April 24th, 1985. Her father, Chester, is a gifted musician. He's a music professor at San Jacinto College who also plays clarinet for the Houston Symphony and for the Houston Ballet Orchestra.
Nice.
And music ran deep in their family. Tiffany lost her mother to cancer when she was still young, and after her mother passed away, her father eventually remarried. And despite the heartbreak, Tiffany carried herself with grace. She was an aspiring actress with a big heart and an even bigger dream to one day become a social worker. And she wanted to help people, especially kids who needed a voice or a hand or just someone to believe in them. And according to her friends, Tiffany had that kind of soul. Now, here's an interesting thing. This is something you might not expect. Both Rachel and Tiffany worked at a strip club. But hang on.
Whoa.
They weren't dancers.
Right.
They were waitresses at a place called Club Exotica.
Okay.
Now, at first, that raised an eyebrow or two, mine included. So I looked into it. In Texas, the alcohol laws allow 18-year-olds to serve drinks in venues where alcohol is consumed on site. And if you're 16 or older, you can sell beer and wine in stores as long as it's not for on-site drinking. You got to be 21 to sell alcohol in the business sense, meaning owning or profiting from it.
All these rules.
But for comparison, back here in Kentucky, even grocery store cashiers need somebody else to scan the booze if they are not 21.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different in Texas.
I get scanned when I'm at Sam's.
Nobody asks to see my ID anymore. I'll just say that. The last person who asked to see my ID, I was like, I'm slipping you an extra 20 in your tip, dude.
No, actually, when that comes up, because it comes up on the barcode, red, that ID needs to be checked. And when they look at me and they go, "You're good."
You're good.
I'm like, "You don't want to see my ID? What's
You're
wrong
good,
with you?"
honey. I'm talking about in a restaurant and you order a cocktail. I'll order a martini. I'll need to see your ID. And I was like, somebody's jockeying for a better tip. I'm going to have to slip him an extra 20.
There you go. Perfect.
Anyway, back to Club Exotica.
All right.
According to other dancers, both girls were offered jobs as performers, but they politely declined, saying that they were too shy. And their boss described them as bubbly, friendly, and full of life. Quote, "They weren't afraid to talk to anybody. Everybody loved them," end quote. And they were making really good money. I mean, that was the reason they did this.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rachel and Tiffany are working at this strip club. And again, for the people in the back, they weren't stripping, they were waiting tables.
Right.
Now, around this same time, Tiffany was dating a guy named Marcus Ray Priscilla. He was 19. He had a little bit of a reputation. He was known for being a cocaine and ecstasy dealer.
Good grief.
And Marcus wasn't exactly Mr. Clean Cut.
Yeah.
None of them had any idea what was about to happen to them, though.
Yeah, it sounds like he definitely wasn't Mr. Perfect.
No. It's July 18th, 2003. Rachel and Tiffany are hanging out at Tiffany's house. Tiffany's boyfriend, Marcus Priscilla, is there, and he had brought along with him his cousin, Adalbert Sanchez. Adalbert was 21. He'd just moved to Clear Lake. He was trying to get away from the violence up on the north side of Houston. He wanted to start fresh. He wanted to get his life on track. He'd only been in town for a week or two. And that day, the group was doing what teenagers and young adults do. They're eating pizza, they're drinking a few beers, watching TV, playing music, laughing. It's like kind of a little bit of a house party energy, right?
Yeah.
And according to Christine, on July 18th, 2003, she and her boyfriend, Kris, same guy she once licked mid-argument and then spat on the ground, had a plan. They were headed to Tiffany's house. They knew Tiffany would be there. They knew her boyfriend, Marcus, the one known for dealing coke and ecstasy, would be there too. But it's not a social visit. This is a setup. Tiffany lived in the 3700 block of Mill Bridge, nestled in the Brook Forest subdivision off El Dorado Boulevard. It's the kind of neighborhood that felt safe. Quiet cul-de-sacs, big trees arching over the streets, lots of kids playing outside. It sounds like our neighborhood, except right now you can't hear yourself think because of the cicadas that we have.
Those little beady-eyed
It's
little...
awful. They named it this year something like the bourbon something.
Yeah.
It's like the apocalypse. That's all I'm going to say. Now, remember, Tiffany's mother had passed away from cancer years earlier, and her dad had remarried. And on this particular day, her dad, Chester, is out of state helping his wife's daughter move. But Chester didn't really live there with Tiffany. He still owned the house, but he usually stayed with his wife at a farm out in Manville, which is a nearby town. And Tiffany didn't want to change schools for her senior year, so she stayed behind, sometimes alone, sometimes with Marcus. So she kind of has run of this house, right?
Right.
Yeah. But Chester, her dad, who's the music professor, he made it a point to check in on her every day. He's still present in her life. He's very much watching over her. But on this day, the house was theirs. These 4 young people, it's a summer afternoon, no parents, no supervision, no idea what's about to happen.
What could possibly go wrong?
Everything is about to go wrong.
Wow.
According to Christine, once inside Tiffany's house, things got tense quickly. An argument broke out between Kris, who was a drug addict, and Marcus, who is a drug dealer. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and according to Christine, just like that, it was over. Christine said she and Kris left without incident, no bloodshed, no violence, just a heated argument. And then Kris drove her straight to work. She was scheduled to work her shift at Walgreens behind the makeup counter. Now, around 3 p.m., one of Tiffany's friends tried calling her, but it wasn't Tiffany who answered, it was Marcus. He said Tiffany was in the bathroom. And that struck the friend as a little odd, but she let it go. She called again about 30 minutes later, and this time, no answer. By 6 p.m., that uneasy feeling had kind of turned into full-blown worry. So the friend and her boyfriend drove over to Tiffany's house. Both Tiffany's car and Marcus's car were parked outside. And the friend knocked, no answer. She opened the door, and within seconds, she came running back out, screaming to call 911. Her boyfriend went inside next, and he came right back out in a panic. This neighbor who's out for a walk sees all this commotion, and he's actually the one who called 911.
Okay.
Whatever happened inside that house, it was bad, and the nightmare is just starting to happen. It's just beginning.
Okay.
Neighbor Angel Amador and others walked into Tiffany's home around 6:30 p.m. At first glance, it looked almost normal, like 2 people were just sitting on the couch watching TV, Tiffany and Marcus. Their heads were bowed. They're still sitting upright. But as they stepped closer, they could see what was really happening. There were gunshot wounds to their heads. There's blood everywhere. So what looked like at first a couple of kids in front of a TV was actually a crime scene soaked in blood.
Wow.
Their heads were slumped forward, resting against their chests, but they were gone. They were killed execution style. On the floor in front of the couch lay the body of a young woman. It's Rachel. And behind the couch is a young man. It's Adalbert. It's a massacre, basically. All 4 victims had been shot repeatedly. The sheer number of rounds fired, around 40 in
Jeez.
total,
Wow.
left the police and the investigators completely floored.
Yeah.
It's not random. They're looking at this going, this isn't random.
Yeah.
This is personal. Somebody hated these kids.
Yep.
Also, what the police discover after working the crime scene is that 2 different guns had been used. And it wasn't just overkill, it was deliberate, it was rage-filled. And Tiffany and Rachel had both been shot multiple times in the groin, a detail that led the investigators to believe that the motive might have involved sexual jealousy or deep-seated envy. Now, the scene was soaked in blood, the walls were splattered, bullet holes riddled in the furniture, the drywall, the bodies. Whoever did it hadn't just wanted them dead. They actually wanted them destroyed. And as we said before, Tiffany and Marcus were found on the couch, and Adalbert's body was found behind it. But Rachel, she was on the floor in front of the couch, and just inches from her lifeless hand was her cell phone.
Oh, wow.
And detectives quickly realized that she had tried to call 911 in the final seconds of her life.
Wow.
She was fighting to survive. She was fighting to get help. But before she could finish dialing, the killer slammed the barrel of a pistol into her skull over and over. And Rachel didn't just bleed out. She choked on her own blood. It's a violent, slow death.
Jeez.
And the police are just like, this just underscores how personal this attack was.
Right.
Meanwhile, Christine and Kris are just kind of moving on with their lives. Christine, for her part, appeared devastated. According to friends and family, she took the loss of Rachel and Tiffany incredibly hard. They were her closest friends, the girls who'd lifted her out of the shadows. According to Christine's mother, Lori, quote, she came home to tell us she was very upset. She cried most of the night, end quote. Christine was so distraught, she didn't even attend their funerals.
Okay.
At least that's what everybody believed at the time.
Okay.
Now, one of the other things that the police noticed at the scene was that there was no sign of a forced entry. So whoever came through that front door had been let in, and nothing appeared to be missing, at least not at first glance. If this was a robbery, it hadn't gone according to script.
Right.
The living room told a different story. Beer cans, pizza boxes, trash scattered everywhere. The kind of casual mess left behind after sort of a laid-back afternoon with friends. Remember, they had all just graduated from high school.
Sure.
But whatever happened inside that house, it escalated fast, and whoever pulled that trigger had been comfortable enough to walk right in with a gun and start shooting. Now, outside the house on Millbridge, it was chaos, a full-blown scene. Neighbors gathered, friends stood frozen in disbelief. People were crying. You know, it was just squad cars everywhere.
Yeah, something you don't expect in a neighborhood like that.
Exactly. And as all this is happening, Rachel's father arrives.
Yeah.
And he rushes toward the house. He's desperate for answers. He's pleading with the officers, please, please, where's my daughter? Is she in there? And they wouldn't tell him anything right away because it was an active crime scene.
Right.
And he said, quote, my daughter may be in there. And then he broke down. And the house on Millbridge had a reputation, according to the neighbors. It was the kind of place where people were always coming and going day and night. It's kind of a revolving door.
Right.
And you might expect that out of a 17, 18-year-old girl who's kind of living in a house by herself.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Sure.
One of Tiffany's friends, speaking anonymously, put it bluntly, quote, I'd have to say they were hanging around with the wrong people, end quote. And she's talking about Marcus.
Sure.
Quote, he had the wrong ties, end quote. Now, after they lay these bodies to rest and it all sort of quiets down, the police are stumped. There were no suspects. There were no solid leads, nothing to tie anyone to the scene, at least not yet. And investigators floated all kinds of theories. Maybe it was a drug deal gone wrong. Maybe retaliation. Maybe something more personal. But despite the brutality of the crime, there were no arrests, no smoking gun, and no one to charge. And just like that, the case went cold.
Wow.
3 years passed and nothing.
Can you imagine being a parent and you have to
Yes.
just accept the fact that they don't have any clues?
Yeah.
Wow.
Police worked the case hard. They weren't sitting on their hands. Detectives interviewed dozens of people, mostly the victim's classmates and friends. They chased hundreds of tips, sifted through rumors. They followed every loose thread they could find. But none of it led anywhere. And this case just remained cold, and the families were broken, and the killer or killers were just walking free.
Right.
And while the investigation was stalling, the families stepped in, especially Rachel's father, George Colorutis. He refused to let this case fade. George printed flyers, mailed hundreds, maybe thousands across the region. He went door to door, raising over $100,000 in reward money. He even had composite sketches drawn up based on 2 long-distance eyewitnesses who had seen something or someone on the day of the murder.
All right.
And those sketches were blasted across more than a dozen billboards along Houston's highways. And George was determined to get answers. He didn't just want justice. He needed justice.
Sure.
Meanwhile, for Christine, life is moving along forward, at least on the surface. In 2004, Christine walked with her graduating class. Now, whether she actually earned a diploma, that's debatable. There's a photo of her in her cap and gown standing next to her mom, but the caption noted that she didn't officially graduate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what was she doing in a cap and gown?
Well, apparently she'd been struggling with drug addiction during her final year of high school, and the school still let her walk.
Okay.
And not long after that, her relationship with Chris Snider, comes to an end. She's tired of licking his face and spitting at his feet. So it's over.
Yep.
And part of the reason is because Chris found himself in jail in Kentucky
Oh, of all places.
for car theft.
There you go.
And not long after Chris Snider was jailed, Christine entered rehab because her drug use had spiraled. She checked into a facility in Kerrville, Texas, and while she was there, she met Justin Rott, a fellow patient and heroin user. And Christine and Justin struck up a romance. It was fast, it was furious, and just a year later, they eloped. It should have been a fresh start, a clean slate. But the honeymoon didn't last, because Christine's past is going to come a-knocking. But around this same time, Christine came into some money. Remember, her father died in a construction accident when she was just a toddler.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out he left her a trust fund. And Christine, after she had graduated and reached 18 years old, inherited $360,000.
Okay.
Now, what could be worse than a former drug addict with $360,000?
Once again, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With some of that money, she bought an apartment for herself and her new husband, Justin. It looked like she was finally settling down, that she was going to build this life. But behind closed doors, Christine's unraveling. And on the second anniversary of the murders in 2005, the local news ran a story on the case, and they showed the sketches that George Colorutis had made up. He didn't want people to forget his daughter. He still wanted justice. And Christine saw the broadcast, and she lost it.
Uh-oh.
The moment those sketches flashed across the screen, Christine broke down. She confessed everything to her new husband,
Whoa.
Justin.
Can you imagine?
She told him the truth, that she and Kris had killed Tiffany, Rachel, Marcus, and Adelbert. Every last one of them.
Wow.
And after the confession, Christine and Justin went on the lam. They didn't think it was safe. She was paranoid. We got to get out of this apartment where people know that we live. They checked into a La Quinta hotel in San Antonio and stayed there for 8 months.
Wow.
They were holed up in a single hotel room, blowing through Christine's inheritance, one $500 withdrawal from the ATM at a time. They weren't vacationing. They were using heroin or cocaine every day,
Wow.
all day. That room became their prison. It was their escape and their graveyard. If she had any ounce of sanity left, it died in that hotel room.
Yeah.
They never let housekeeping in, not once.
Ooh.
And according to Justin, Christine completely fell apart. She never left the room. She never left that hotel room.
For 8 months.
For 8 months. And
Wow.
they didn't let anybody in.
Wow.
For 8 months.
I bet it smelled really good.
Just wait.
Okay.
She'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming. She spent her days gripped by panic attacks. She was having hallucinations. The murders are not behind her. They're a constant loop in her drug-fueled head.
Yeah.
And the only thing that quieted her mind for the moment was to shoot up.
Yeah.
So she was just oblivious to all of it.
God.
Now, by this time, her mom and stepdad have no idea where she is, and they fear the worst. Then on July 8th, 2006, 3 years to the day after the murders, Crime Stoppers got an anonymous call. It was a man who knew things no one should have known unless they were at the crime scene or knew someone who was there. There were details that had never been released to the public, like how Rachel had died crawling across the floor, desperately trying to reach her phone to call 911. They never released that to the public.
Wow.
But he knew. He told them the murders hadn't been random, that there were 2 shooters, a male and a female. And he told authorities that he thought that one of them was named Kris, the male. The other, he was sure of her name, Christine Paolilla.
Wow.
Now, who do you think made that call?
The husband?
It was her husband,
Wow.
Justin Rott.
Jeez.
And what the police will learn later is that he had been in rehab with Christine, and, you know, she sees this broadcast and loses her mind.
Right.
Yeah. Loose lips sink ships.
Yep, and it looks like they're about ready to sink.
Yeah. She torpedoed her freedom.
Yeah.
Christine and Justin weren't hard to track down. They just followed the depleting trust fund.
Yeah.
You know, they used bank records. They tracked her through her $500 a day withdrawals, and the hotel was paid for on her debit card. So super easy to find them.
Right.
And they tracked them to the hotel room they'd basically destroyed in San Antonio. And here's the kicker. It wasn't just the tip that led them there. The hotel had called the cops too. Christine and Justin were still paying their bill, but the problem management had was that the room smelled so bad, and they never allowed housekeeping in the room while they were there for those 8 months.
Jeez.
Something stinks in here.
Ugh,
Yeah.
8 months.
Man.
And the staff had had enough. So when police show up with San Antonio's officer, Sergeant Brian Harris, leading the way on July 19th, 2006 at 11:55 a.m., just 11 days after her husband calls in his anonymous tip, they weren't walking into a quiet arrest. They were walking into a biohazard scene.
Ugh.
Because when police eventually got inside, it was gross. There were needles everywhere, on the bed, the carpet, the tables. It looked like a syringe truck had crashed into the room and exploded.
Wow.
There's trash everywhere. They were living in filth. And I have to think, they're living in filth, and there's a $100,000 reward, and she's confessed to her husband, and he's maybe thinking, I want out of this chicken outfit.
Yeah.
So he calls Crime Stoppers.
Did he get the 100,000?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when police raid the room, Christine, Miss Irresistible, is drugged up. She's dirty. She's basically living like an animal. Actually, if I think about it, most animals have it better than this.
Yeah.
When officers stormed into their hotel room and found not just a strung out Christine in a sea of needles, they also found 70 vials of heroin in the room.
Choo.
There was blood on the walls. All these used needles scattered everywhere. There were boxes of clean needles stacked up on the dresser. And there were between 80 and 85 loaded syringes lined up like some kind of twisted assembly line.
Wow.
They're all ready to go.
Amazing.
And police said the place reeked. It was a mix of rot, chemicals, sweat, and something darker, guilt.
Yeah.
Christine Paolilla and Justin Rott were both arrested on the spot. And when investigators questioned Christine, she denied everything. She swore up and down she had nothing to do with the murders of her best friends and that she didn't know anything about the bloodbath at Tiffany's house. But then came the questions about the guy named Kris that was with her that day, and they say his name, Chris Snider.
Mm-hmm.
And Christine hesitates and says, quote, You're sure he's not going to be able to get to me in here, right? Promise me that, end quote.
Wow.
She claimed she had no idea where Kris might be, no clue, but what Christine didn't know was that the police were already closing in on him.
Mm-hmm.
And then another bombshell. The same anonymous tipster, her husband, told police the murder weapons didn't belong to Christine or to Kris. They belonged to Chris Snider's father.
Ooh.
And now that the police know this, investigators execute a search warrant at Chris's parents' house in Louisville, Kentucky. And when they get inside the house with their warrant, they start searching. They find a gun safe, and it's inside the dad's bedroom. It's
Right.
locked, and inside the gun safe were two guns that are going to match the ballistics of the murder weapon from that day at Tiffany's house.
Wow.
Now, here's where it gets real, if it's not real enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say how much worse
I
things
know.
get.
I say, here's where it gets weird. And everyone's like, what? Here's where it gets real. In the early 2000s, detectives used Chris Snider's MySpace page along with his phone records to track him down because Kris wasn't in Kentucky. He was in Greenville, South Carolina. So they're using his MySpace page to find him.
Is MySpace even around?
I bet there's still MySpace. I never had one, so I don't know.
It's sort of like in Superbad.
You guys on MySpace or?
So, you guys like on MySpace or anything?
Exactly. But Kris isn't in Kentucky. He's in Greenville, South Carolina. Also love Greenville, South Carolina. Did my internship there when I was in college. Love that place.
Mm-hmm.
But Kris moved there in June of 2006. He's shacking up with a woman he'd met online, maybe through his MySpace page. But once police found the guns, the Snider family catches wind of all of this, and they tip Kris off, and they tell him, dude, your ass is grass. The police are coming for you. So when they arrived in Greenville, South Carolina, they received yet another tip, this one suggesting that Kris may have taken his own life. So acting on this lead, officers searched a remote wooded area near where Kris had last been seen. And on August 5th, 2006, they found him. Wow. Chris Snider's decomposing body was discovered deep in the trees. He had overdosed on prescription medication, and now he'll never stand trial because he took his truth to the grave.
Right.
But Christine, her story's just getting to the good part. Back in Texas, Christine is still saying, I'm innocent. She tells investigators she knows nothing about this murder. And what she doesn't know is that just a few rooms away, her, quote, loving husband, Justin, is spilling everything. Yeah. What's he doing, honey?
He's making himself his own deal.
No, he's singing like a canary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Justin tells police that Christine did confess to him that she'd admitted to being an active participant in the killings, that she wasn't just present. She had actually gone back inside. She was the one who saw Rachel reaching for the gun or reaching for the phone, and she's the one who beat Rachel to death with the gun.
Jeez.
Again, Justin and Christine, they're in separate rooms, and when police tell her that Chris Snider's dead, well, her story changes just right on a dime. It was all Kris. He planned it. He executed it. He pulled the trigger, and she was just along for the ride. So with the other living witness gone, Christine is now rewriting history in real time. She's like, let me take that back. Let me take that one back.
What really happened?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, there are reports that Christine chain smoked her way through every single questioning session, cigarette after cigarette.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just nervous. And she told police that when she and Kris pulled up and parked near Tiffany's house that day, she started to sense that something was off, that Kris was up to no good. She tells them it wasn't planned, that she had no idea what Kris intended to do. She was just a bystander. She was a scared girl caught in the middle of a murder scene with a man that she feared. But then they hit her with the evidence. They're like, it's all piling up pretty fast because, she's saying, quote, I was right behind Kris. I stayed behind him the whole time. I felt so bad. I was just so scared, end quote.
Right.
And then they ask her, well, what were you afraid of, Christine? Quote, I thought he was going to, shoot me, end quote. Yeah. So she's saying that they step inside Tiffany's house, everything spirals out of control. Chris gets aggressive. He starts arguing with Marcus. Voices are raised. And then, quote, I heard the first gunshot. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I felt so scared and so sick. It was like bubble wrap. Pop, 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 end quote.
Wow.
Now remember, they found 40 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 deadly pops and a house full of bodies. Christine claimed Chris had forced her to carry a gun that day. Quote, he made me. He said I had to, end quote. So then the investigator, leans in and he asks her, quote, so the gun was in your hand, end quote. And now she's got nowhere to go with this.
Yeah.
So she says to the detective, quote, yes. And that changed everything. No more pretending she hadn't held a weapon. No more tiptoeing around her involvement. The gun was in her hand and 4 people are dead.
Right.
But Christine just kept on spinning her version of the murders. Quote, he was holding on to it too. I was scared. I was crying. I made the gun go off, not purposely, a million times, end quote.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So she tells the detectives that Chris is the real killer. She didn't pull the trigger. Not really, because he had his hands over hers. On top of it, he's guiding the gun, controlling it, forcing her to fire. She said he threatened to kill her whole family, if she said a word. So she claimed she held it together, composed herself, and then went to work that day at Walgreens behind the makeup counter like nothing had happened, like 4 people hadn't just been slaughtered in a living room.
La, 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 la.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christine told police she was terrified that if she didn't do what Chris said, he would shoot her too. Quote, he used to get satanic, talk about people, say stuff like, I wonder what it's like to kill someone, end quote. So she's painting Chris as a monster. He was manipulative. He was obsessed with death. He was dangerous. And she is just another victim, this scared little girl.
Yep.
Now, Rachel and Tiffany's families are just stunned because remember, Christine wasn't just like this other classmate. She was their daughter's friend, somebody they had welcomed into their homes time and time again.
Right.
And they knew that their girls had like lifted Christine up, and now she was their killer. But Christine's family is standing by her. They insisted that she couldn't have done it. They called her a victim, just like the 4 who died. They said she'd been manipulated and threatened. But to the victims' families, that defense rang pretty hollow.
Exactly.
Because no matter how Christine framed it, their daughters were dead and Christine had been there.
Right.
Now, Christine hadn't burned through all of her trust fund, at least not yet. What was left and didn't go into her veins went into her defense. Her family hired Mike DeGuerin, a high-profile defense attorney out of Houston, the kind of guy you call when you're in serious trouble, and Christine was in deep. Now, it wasn't just about telling her story, it was about selling it to a jury, and the prosecutors were ready to tear her version apart because the evidence told an entirely different story.
Sure, yeah.
Christine pled not guilty, saying the killer was Chris. According to her attorney, Mike, Christine was terrified of him, and she was forced to be there, but never the one pulling the strings. She was manipulated. Why would she murder her only 2 friends, the girls who helped her when no one else would? That's the question her legal team leaned on. They painted Chris as the villain and Christine as another victim. But the prosecuting attorney, Rob Fryer, had a different idea. He's quoted as saying, quote, that's a bunch of crap, end quote.
Well, right to the point.
Yeah, it's Texas.
Yeah.
Don't beating around the bush.
Exactly.
It's easy to blame the dead guy, and that's exactly what he and prosecutor West Fryer hammered home to the jury. And Christine had every reason to shift the blame to Chris. He was gone, conveniently unable to defend himself. But the forensics didn't lie, because the evidence showed that 2 guns were fired simultaneously. Let's go back to what Christine said, that Chris was guiding her hand, that he was holding the gun with her. But if Chris was firing his own weapon at the same time, who exactly was pulling the trigger on the second one?
Yeah.
It had to be Christine.
Yeah.
So her defense is unraveling, including 2 eyewitnesses named Michelle and Craig Lackner, who lived next door to the house. And they pointed Christine out in the courtroom and ID'd Chris out of a 6-photo lineup, saying, yeah, we saw these 2 walking into the house. But according to her attorney, quote, he put the .38 in her hand. She's holding it by the handle, eyes closed, terrified, end quote. Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, they're just saying she was a puppet.
Yeah.
And the jury's not really buying what they're selling.
You think?
The prosecution's standing on their 2 guns, 2 shooters, simultaneous fire. Christine wasn't a passive bystander. She was an active participant. And the ballistics told the true story. And the crime scene investigators testified to that very thing, that Tiffany and Adalbert were found on the couch, feet up, no signs of struggle. They hadn't been moved. Both had been shot multiple times by 2 different guns. There were no, quote, guiding hands, no eyes closed. It was coordinated. It was deliberate.
Right.
There were 2 shooters firing at the same time, and Christine was one of them.
Right.
According to the ballistic evidence, it's clear Tiffany and Adalbert, who were found with no signs of struggle, were hit by multiple gunshots from 2 different weapons. The only way that happens, both guns are being fired at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, the other 2 victims, Rachel, who was trying to call 911, and Marcus, who was found behind the couch, had tried to run. And the idea that Christine was just holding the gun while Chris Snider did all the work, like her story just didn't match the evidence, right?
Didn't add up.
Yeah. So remember, part of her defense is that she's afraid of Kris, too. Well, the prosecution pulled her phone records, and that said otherwise. After the murders, Christine called Kris constantly. Not once, not twice, over 1,000 times. More than 1,000 calls between them in the aftermath.
It's because she was really scared.
That's right. You don't call someone you're deathly afraid of 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't do that unless you're trying to plan and control the narrative.
Right.
But the pièce de résistance, her husband, Justin Rott.
I was just about ready to ask, where's this dude?
He took the stand and was the prosecution's star witness.
The nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Now, the defense tried to smear him, claimed he'd had a reputation for leeching off women with money, bleeding them dry, then moving on. But that didn't matter because when it came to time to testify, he delivered.
Right.
He told the court that Christine was not a bystander. She was a killer. He testified that Christine told him, plain and simple, that Kris handed her a gun before they ever walked into Tiffany's house that day. Yeah. It wasn't the heat of the moment. She was under no pressure. Yeah.
Wow.
It was all premeditated.
Sure.
And the prosecution asked Justin point blank, quote, did Christine ever say that Kris forced the gun on her? That he threatened her? End quote. And Justin didn't flinch and said, quote, no, end quote. Yeah.
Boom. Mic drop.
Exactly. He said that she knew exactly what she was walking into. She knew it was going to be a drug ripoff. And when bullets started flying, she didn't hesitate. She joined in. Quote, she told me that she told Kris they had to go back. She said she had to make sure they were all dead, end quote. According to Justin, Christine walked back into the house willingly, saw Rachel still alive, choking and drowning in her own blood. Quote, she said, Rachel just kept asking why, end quote. She finished what they started. Quote, she beat her to death with the gun. She kept hitting her and hitting her and hitting her, end quote.
Wow.
Now, Christine never took the stand. Her attorneys advised against it, and she listened. There were 9 days of testimony before closing arguments, and it took the jury, how long?
30 seconds.
3 hours to return a verdict. Christine Marie Paolilla was found guilty of capital murder. And at sentencing, Rachel's dad read a victim impact statement to the court, as did Adalbert Sanchez's sister, Nicole. And Christine did not tell the families. She was sorry. She stood on her, not guilty, I didn't do it. Yeah. And that was just a gut punch. They had waited for years for this trial and for the truth and for closure. And they wanted to look Christine in the eye. They wanted to hear her speak. They wanted to hear her say that she was sorry. And they never got that. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence.
Amazing.
Now, since Christine was 17 at the time of the murders, she was officially a juvenile offender. And in Texas, they're kind of an eye for an eye kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
And for this crime, can you blame them? They can't give her the death penalty because she's only 17.
Right.
So Christine Marie Paolilla was sentenced to life without parole and is serving her term in the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, Texas. Now, she did appeal the case in 2011, saying that the police interrogated her when she was under the influence of heroin or she was in the midst of a heroin withdrawal. And the appeal also stated that life without parole was cruel and unusual punishment especially since she was 17 when she committed the crime. They also stated that the interviews she gave to the police needed to be suppressed in court because she was in the midst of this heroin withdrawal. And they made a motion for a mistrial, but her appeal fell on deaf ears, and the judge affirmed the judgment of the trial court.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Good.
So why did she do it? And why did her husband turn her in? Was he just tired of living in filth, being on the lam?
Yeah.
Did he not want to be married to a killer?
That would probably have something to do with it.
But why did she kill her best friends, the two girls that were so good to her?
I think they were so desperate for drugs, and she was manipulated by this guy, but not to the point where she felt like that he was going to kill her.
Or was she jealous of her friends?
Yeah, I'm sure everything.
Even though they were good to her, was she still jealous? I mean, she's still a little bit on the outside.
Yeah.
Even though they had taken her under their wing.
I'm going to say all of the above.
Yeah. But that is the story of Christine Paolilla, and that's all I have to say about that.
All right, my take on the whole thing is that sometimes people are just evil. And, listen, she had a bad childhood. I mean, a lot of people have bad childhoods. They come from really bad situations, but they don't end up being killers.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of drug addiction, it runs in families, whether it's alcoholism or drug addiction. And so I can sort of see that part of it happening. But at the same time, she's in rehab, she's getting clean. But as soon as she inherits that $360,000, it's like, Katie, bar the door.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just going to, now I have the money to do it. So I'm going to do it as much as I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's baffling. It's baffling.
Well, she's in a place where she needs to be for the rest of her life.
For the rest of her life. Yeah, she went to jail at what night? She wasn't even 20?
Yeah.
So, and that's where she'll be for the rest of her life.
Yeah, good. Well, let's leave her and go to some stupid, stupid crimes with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, this first one I'm calling the not so smart phone.
Okay.
Boise, Idaho. Authorities say a smartphone and a dumb idea have landed a 21-year-old Idaho man in trouble with the law.
Idaho? Idaho. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Boise police say Alexander A. Welch is charged with an unlawful exercise of the function of a police officer.
What?
After officers say he used a cell phone app that flashes blue and red to try to pull over another car Saturday night.
Oh, wow.
A motorist called police to report that someone who didn't appear to be an officer tried to pull the driver over with a flashing blue and red light.
Wow.
Yeah, the person said the car pulled in behind briefly and then drove away. The suspicious driver followed the car and called police, who located Welch's vehicle. Police found an application on Welch's phone that flashed blue and red lights and arrested him.
I wonder if that app is still available.
I don't know. Why would you have that? That was stupid.
To pull people over.
Yeah.
Although, I know I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If someone's behind you that has flashing lights and you don't feel safe pulling over, get on your phone, your cell phone, and call 911 and say, this is me, this is where I am, this is the car I'm driving, and I'm driving to the closest police station or the closest place that's, public, to a gas station or convenience store or something before I stop. And will you please let the officer behind me know? And if there's not an officer behind them, then because, there are even bad police officers who've killed people. We've done stories about that before.
Yeah. That's an important safety tip.
That's my safety tip for the day.
All right. Number 2, happy birthday suit.
You always have naked people.
Oklahoma City. An Oklahoma man ended his drug-fueled crime spree Monday with some choice words for kids as police led him to a cruiser in cuffs.
Oh, no, to kids? Okay.
The pursuit began when Brian Nina pulled out of a parking lot and nearly hit an Oklahoma County deputy, according to KFOR. I guess that's their TV station there. He fled police and eventually ditched his vehicle, hiding in a nearby creek. A canine unit tracked Nina down and found him in a home where he had broken in, stripped off his pants, and cracked open a beer before he was arrested.
Oh my gosh.
Before he was taken to the cruiser. Here we go. Nina turned to KFOR's camera and said, "Don't do drug, kids. Do not do drugs. Oxy meth is the worst thing in the whole wide world. They make people do really dumb things." At least he had a conscience.
He's like telling his own cautionary tale
Oh,
before
my
he
gosh.
gets in the cruiser without pants.
There you go. Number 3, and finally.
Finally.
All right. When you want it, you just got to have it.
Okay. Is this chocolate? Because when I want it, I just have to have it.
Well, sort of. Bonita Springs, Florida. Naked men.
More naked people.
More naked people.
Naked. More
Na-
naked people.
Naked men steal 60 hamburgers from a Florida eatery. Police say the men broke in early Sunday and left a trail of red peppers on the beach.
Oh my
A
gosh.
Southwest Florida waitress has dubbed the trio of naked hamburger thieves who broke into an eatery Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest.
There are 3 naked people stealing hamburgers?
Waitress,
Oh my gosh.
and I'm going to mispronounce her last name, but I'm going to try anyway. Waitress Nancy Sanser was still laughing after police released a surveillance video Wednesday morning showing the college-age men, 2 naked and 1 clad in underwear, stealing 60 hamburgers from Doc's Beach House in Bonita Beach. Police say the men broke in Sunday morning and left a trail of red peppers on the beach. Doc's general manager, Lou Bangert, told the news press of Fort Myers that he never witnessed such a crime in the restaurant's 27-year history.
Yeah.
He said,
why would you
Yeah,
witness such a crime?
He said thieves have broken in and taken money from the cash register, but he says no one has ever slammed through the door completely naked looking for beef.
Where's the beef?
No word if any arrests have been made. So there you go.
Actually, who was saying where's the beef? Was it the person behind the counter looking at the naked people, or was the naked guys trying to get the hamburgers? I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Ba-doom boom.
Yeah, too many naked people. Well, if you have a bless your heart, or you know someone's heart who needs blessing, all you got to do is go to hitchedtohomicide.com. When you get there, there's a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can also suggest a case or tell us about your brush with true crime.
Yep.
That is my amazing husband out there.
That's my beautiful ride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.